I'm close to Tesla, Boring Company, and all that good stuff. Here's what I'm seeing for Bastrop in 2024. By the way, Chris Pesek, broker associate at Pesek Properties. Just to let you know, I'm not some idiot with a camera. Been in Austin since 2011. I know there's people that have been doing it longer, but I've got some experience here. So when I'm bringing you this data, it's from history on my part, and I'm also studying a lot of the analysts in the area that dig a lot deeper into the numbers than I am. So there you go. There's my credentials. If this is the kind of content that you're looking for, stay tuned. I'm about to jump into this. Bastrop 2024, throwing on my glasses because I'm getting older. I'm going to share this other screen with you real quick and talk about where I'm getting the data, what I'm looking at. So when I go into this, I'm looking at a couple of periods in time that have had very similar interest rate environments to where we are now. And I'm specifically looking at 2002, way back over here. These graphs from Patent Title go back, and you can use these graphs, stats.patenttitle.com. You can go look at these graphs yourself. Start over here in 2000 and go up until present day. Obviously, I'm looking at 2002, which had a very similar interest rate. The numbers roughly 6.5%, 7%. The thing that was interesting about 2002 is we were still coming out of Austin as a whole was coming out of the .com bubble, and Austin had a lot of 90s, and there were quite a few jobs that were lost here, and there was not as much money going around as there was at certain other parts in our history. So I think that 2002 is a very good indicator, and something that that bears looking at this point, to see where we're going to be going in the future this year. The other time frame is 2006. Which right in here, 2006, again, similar interest rates. And this was leading up to that big recession in 08, 09 that was caused by the housing bubble. Now, I want to zoom in on this real quick and show you what happened in this area during the housing bubble, because you might be a little bit surprised. So you see kind of the peak in here in 08. And then it just kind of goes flat. It dropped a little bit, 2010, 2011, but there's about a 3-year period here where it just goes flat in Bastrop. And that's pretty indicative of Central Texas overall. There's not a lot of big drops, when the rest of the country is having housing crises. And so that's why now when people are talking, oh my God, and we've got, the bubble's going to burst and all this other stuff, I'm just like, yeah, that's something that historically doesn't really happen in this area. So that being said, Bastrop overall, and what I did is I went in to, sorry, I don't know why I took it off. I'm going to share this again. I went in and looked at the numbers overall from 2000. Let me get this graph put back out up until Q4 of 19, which is kind of right in here. And for obvious reasons, I don't include the COVID years because those were atypical. They have nothing to do with our market. That was just a stupid market. But if you look at this graph, you can see we've got pretty steady appreciation. And then at some point here around 2012, 2013, it starts going up a little bit higher. Now, if you want to say, okay, well, let's take out COVID and look where everything is, that's fine. If you look, it still is kind of, it's dang near a logarithmic graph at this point going up here to the end. I do want to point out one other. So what I'm saying is when I'm looking at overall appreciation here, we're still ahead of where we were in 2019 before the COVID crazy times. One other thing that I want to point out here is kind of this last couple of years. Notice that we had, we kind of bottomed out right in here, Q4 of 2023. So really last month, it's February 2024 right now. We kind of bottomed out in this time frame, and we're seeing a little bit of a J hook up. Now, if we look back to 2023 Q1, okay, we J hooked up and then it dropped off again. But I think the difference moving forward this year is pretty much all analysts are saying that they feel like interest rates are going to start to trend down after the midway point in the year. So we'll see. So all of what I'm going to tell you, if we see interest rates trending down, then we're going to see good appreciation. If interest rates pop up or start trending back up, that's going to affect us in a negative way. Obviously, that's not rocket science. Everybody understands that. But when we look back from 2001 to 2019, guys, in Bastrop, we saw 105% appreciation over that time. Okay, that's an average of 5.5% a year. So from 2000 to 2019, we saw 5.5% average appreciation over the whole thing. Now, were there flat times? Yep, I just showed you that one, 2008 to 2011. It was fairly flat. We had a little bit of a flat time at the beginning of this in that 2001, 2002 timeframe, but overall, we've seen pretty good appreciation throughout that entire thing. Now, when we go back and take a look at 2002. Get zoomed in here a little bit. Man, my pointer is not working real good. You can see we're fairly flat overall here. So from 2001 to 2003, average, we saw 1% a year appreciation. Okay. And I do a 3-year average just to make sure I don't pull in an outlying year. The median appreciation during that time was 1.6 a year. So median was up a little bit more. What that tells me is the people that had money were buying more expensive houses, and that median was skewing upward. From 2005 to 2007, try to move this over here. Okay, so from 2005 to 2007, you can see we've got a little bit better appreciation here. The average during that time was 7.1% a year. So that was a big appreciation time period right in through here over those 3 years. And even the median was up 7%. So we saw a really good appreciation during that period of similar interest rates. Now, the other thing that I want to talk about or point out before, before we go on with the projections that I've got, are the current market in Bastrop. So right now we've got 333 total homes. About half of those are new home inventory. Bastrop and a lot of the suburbs around Austin have a lot of new home inventory. So about half of that is new home inventory. What we're seeing right now, though, in Bastrop is an absorption rate between 10 and 15% over the last 2 years. So from an absorption rate perspective, Bastrop is a buyer's market. And so what that tends to mean is that your appreciation is not going to be quite as good. Now, to contrast, I just did a video on the Kyle Buda market, and the absorption rate there over the last 2 years was 31 and 33%. That is a fat seller's market. That is a selling market in Kyle and Buda. Bastrop, not quite so much over the last 2 years. But what I do know about builders is if they're selling houses, and right now there are, let me see the under contracts here. Sorry about that. We are at 105 under contract there. And again, if we're going to extrapolate and say roughly half of those are new home inventory over the last 3 months, okay, we're seeing builders starting to sell houses. And coincidentally, as a realtor, when builders can't sell houses, I get a lot of emails that say, hey, these are the incentives we're offering. We're giving your buyers $40,000. We're giving you as a realtor an extra $5,000. That's what happens when they're not selling houses. Those emails stopped in December. I have not gotten one of those emails since December, except for Dripping Springs. So that tells me that builders are selling houses. And when they're selling houses, every 4 or 5 houses, they're going to raise the rate. It may only be a $5,000 bump, but they're going to bump those houses $5,000 or $3,000 every time they sell a certain number of houses. They want the prices to go up. They're making money at that. They're trying to increase the amount of money that their investors are making. So because that market out there has so many new homes and they're selling right now, we're going to see that we're going to see that appreciation start to creep up this year. Again, how much? That's my overall prediction here. What are we going to see? Historically, again, Bastrop, we're 7% a year. I don't think we're going to see 7% appreciation in Bastrop. I think it's going to be less this year. I'm predicting for Bastrop, we're going to see about 4% appreciation. Why? Okay. One, because they're not selling quite as fast as Kyle and Buda and some of the other suburbs. So the builders are still going to try to run the prices up. But if you sell 500 homes in an area versus 200 homes, you can increase the area that you sold 500 homes in faster than you can increase the one with 200 homes. That tends to make sense. So I don't think the builders are going to be able to escalate the prices quite as much. So I think that's going to restrict our appreciation out there a little bit. And it's still a buyer's market. So buyers are going to be negotiating prices. They're going to be trying to hold those prices down. So while Kyle and Buda, I think we're going to see at least 5% appreciation and maybe 6 or 7 out here in Bastrop. I don't think we're going to see more than about 4% unless if interest rates start to drop after June, like a lot of analysts are saying. If those interest rates start to drop, we could see 5, 5.5, and potentially up to 6% in Bastrop because it's a highly sought after area, because it's close to the airport, close to Tesla and all the other stuff, right? There's a lot of workers that are going out there or that want to be there. It's just right now they're choosing to go to Kyle and Buda because that's still drivable to the airport and to, to all the jobs that they're trying to get to. So Bastrop's being held back a little bit. If the interest rates drop, I think we're going to see bigger numbers, potentially 5.5%, maybe 6. I don't think they'll go quite that high, but I think solidly this year we're going to be right around 4% appreciation in Bastrop. Now, what does it mean for you as a buyer or for you as a seller? First of all, as a buyer, if you're buying a $400,000 house, which is a pretty normal house in Bastrop, okay, that's $24,000 in appreciation. Your closing cost typically is going to be around 3%. So again, 12,000 on that same. Did I do my numbers right? No. Yeah, 400,000, 4%, 16,000. Sorry, doing math in my head. Your closing costs are going to be about 12%. So you would cover your closing costs in 1 year. In 2 years, you would be positive on the house. And a lot of people are worried about being upside down and stuff. At 4% appreciation, you're going to do pretty good on your annualized returns and even paying off, the cash that you've outlaid for the house. So as a buyer, I don't know that it makes a lot of sense to hang around. I know everybody wants to try to get better interest rates, but if you calculate in, what happens if your interest rate drops a 0.5 percentage point versus losing 4% of appreciation, I think you're coming out at a wash in the first year. You might be a little bit more ahead if you wait, but not much. And then when you start calculating, you're recapitalizing your interest rates. Your appreciation, into that second year and third year, I think you're probably better off buying sooner than later. So as a buyer, I think it might be a pretty good idea to start shopping sooner than later, because we're not going to see these huge bubbles bursting like they're talking about in the national media. As a seller, it's a buyer's market out there right now. You're competing with a lot of new home inventory. I don't know that it makes a lot of sense to sell right now unless you really have to. And if you have to, you just have to be cognizant of the market and understanding where the new homes are built, how yours stacks up, and not necessarily trying to price too high. It's all about pricing correctly, because when the buyers have the power, if you're overpriced, you're going to sit on the market. They're going to go to other stuff. And if you're on the market now for 45 days, you're a stale listing. And the buyers, the only ones you're going to see are the people that are coming out trying to beat you up on price and trying to get a steal of a deal. So anyway, that's kind of what I'm seeing for you sellers out there in Bastrop. But guys, if this is the content or the kind of content that you like, make sure you're subscribing. I'm doing this exact video for the major suburbs around Austin and Austin as a whole. And then I do a lot of other videos, data analysis, neighborhood analysis, things to do, things to see, in my favorite places in Austin. So if that's the kind of stuff that you want to see on a YouTube channel, man, follow me, because I have got a ton of it. But that's it for this video. Pay attention. And again, if you find value here, subscribe. We'll see you on the next one.